CBS 7 News presents Closer Look.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us on the Closer Look. I'm Macey Meriggi. From unrest in the Middle East to growing criticism from the voting population, Congress appears to have its work cut out for it in the coming months as a major election draws near. Joining me now is U.S. Congressman for the 23rd District of Texas, Pete Gallego. Mr. Gallego, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, we have a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. First of all, there's been a lot of discussion as of late about changing the congressional district maps, and one option on the table would reportedly have you covering a much larger portion of the Permian Basin, and that change would also push Congressman Mike Conaway out. How do you feel about the proposed redistricting?
Well, I will tell you that I will do whatever the judges say that we have to do. I take redistricting with a grain of salt, having been through several redistricting processes in the legislature. I'm not sure that there will be any changes, but ultimately I think the judges have the say, and I will tell you that I feel very comfortable in the Permian Basin, obviously having been born and raised in Alpine and knowing this area really well and having a lot of friends here. So I will do as the judges request, and in the meantime I certainly continue to maintain those relationships out here and to do all I can to benefit the Permian Basin and all of far West Texas in the U.S. Congress.
Right. Well, another topic that's been making headlines in the southern part of West Texas is the possibility of opening a trade route that would connect Chihuahua, Mexico with the Permian Basin. But there's a lot of controversy in your own district surrounding the idea. Where do you stand on the issue? Well,
I will tell you the controversy is not necessarily in the district. I think most of the controversy is probably centered around my hometown of Alpine. And the reason is, you know, frankly, even as I drove up here today, I had to fight for space on the highway between all of the 18-wheelers and all of the, you know, our economy here has boomed so much as a result of the energy. And frankly, I think Alpine has some concerns. We like our way of life over there a lot. And there's some folks who really don't want to see that additional traffic on the highways. And while I think that's a legitimate concern, I've always, frankly, been one of those people who likes to find a middle ground. And if we can figure out a way to get the traffic around Alpine and make sure that Alpine preserves its way of life, I think the commerce with Mexico is huge. It's a really important part of our economy, not only in the region but in the state. And so I can see that we can make this a win-win. We can put people on the moon. We can figure out a way to solve this.
Right. Well, in recent days, congressional leaders have expressed a hard line when it comes to the Syrian unrest. Do you stand by the belief that President Obama should have to get congressional approval to bomb?
Well, I think the Congress and the President need to work together. I think foreign policy is clearly the purview under the Constitution of the President, but I think if nothing else, out of professional courtesy, he should be consulting with and talking to members of Congress, and in particular the congressional leadership. This is such a huge commitment on the part of the United States, and frankly our homeland security is so important to each and every one of us that I do think it's important that he at least consult with the congressional leadership. And so for me, that would be where I would urge the White House to constantly and consistently loop the members of the House and members of the Senate into the conversation so that we don't have to read about things in the newspaper. The White House breeds a lot of resentment in the Congress because it sometimes does things on its own without any consultation at all. And frankly, if for professional courtesy or for no other reason, the White House ought to be talking to the Congress.
Absolutely. Now, shifting back to your own district, what are some of the biggest concerns or issues you fight for in representation of your constituents?
Well, I think people where I live are pretty pragmatic and pretty practical, and I think one of the things that they want to see is a government that works. People that sit around a table at the same time and talk to each other so that we can make government work the way that it is supposed to, the way that it did when we made this country into the most successful democracy that the world has ever seen. In addition to that, I work on issues as varied as veterans issues, because that's one thing that ties all of our communities together is we all have large proportions of veterans, including World War II veterans that are still around, to Korea, Vietnam, and even in Afghanistan and Iraq now. I also work on jobs and making sure that all of our kids grow up with an opportunity to do something better with their lives. And frankly, that leads me, when I talk about kids, I always talk about education, because as the father of a 9-year-old, that's like a big deal to me. So helping people to make sure that we do the right thing by our children, I think those are the issues that I am passionate about and really try to work on.
Great. Well, okay, a recent U.S. News and World Report poll shows that a staggering 80% of Americans think a majority of Congress doesn't deserve to be reelected. Why do you think that is, and do you think voters in your district would agree?
Well, I will tell you that Congress has a very low approval rating. In fact, it has the lowest approval ratings that it's ever had in the history of polls. And I think they've earned that. I think that the fact that they don't agree on lunch, the fact that you can't put people around a table, that the parties don't talk to each other, I think that lack of respect and that lack of civility, frankly, have cost Congress a lot. And from my perspective, I work every day at trying to get the Democrats and Republicans to talk to each other. And I think in the district that I represent, people know me very well, and they know that I'm the guy who tries to build bridges and come up with solutions. And I think that will help me in the end.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for you today, Mr. Gallego, but we really appreciate your time, and thanks so much for coming up to Permian Basin.
Thank you very much. Take care.